Iron Eagle is a film that I absolutely love. It came about when I was a young teen and I was just starting to love going to the movies a lot. This has some parallels to The Karate Kid in that it's about a high school teen being mentored by an older, wiser master. In this case, it's Jason Gedrick as Doug Masters and Louis Gossett Jr. as Colonel Chappie Sinclair. Iron Eagle is directed by one of the best directors of the 70s, Sidney J. Furie. His previous films like The Ipcris Files, The Entity, and The Boys in Company C don't exactly scream 80s teen boy fantasy jet movie, but he pulls it off. Iron Eagle gets compared to Top Gun a lot, and is unfairly called a ripoff. Let's set the record straight here. This came out before Top Gun in the same year, but it was first out of the gate, not Top Gun. So all you Top Gun aficionados, you can back off because Doug Masters would blow Maverick right out of the sky because he has cassettes.
All right, you bastards.
The plot concerns Doug Masters' dad, played by Jack Death himself, the magnificent Tim Thomerson, getting shot down somewhere in the Middle East and being held hostage. Masters' dad is eventually scheduled for execution by our baddie, only referred to here as the Ministry of Defense, played by Sir David Suchet, aka Perot. Once Doug and his family get the news about the government's inability to do much about it, he takes matters into his own hands, because Doug is a wannabe pilot himself, along with his band of high school Air Force brats. He gets the help of retired Colonel Chappie Sinclair to help him steal 2 F-16B jets and rescue his dad on their own. That's it. That's the plot. Steal some jets, blow shit up, rescue dad, and bring an exquisite cassette playlist with you.
I cut off that stuff!
You'll screw up my rhythm.
If you don't cut it off, I'll screw up something else.
One of the most important elements of this film is the portable cassette player, which we will call the Walkman. The Walkman is everywhere. Doug has it at home, in the car, in the plane, in the simulator. The Walkman is Doug. Doug is the Walkman. There is no separation. It's even attached to his leg like RoboCop.
Could have killed me.
Now, Doug has a cool group of buddies, which include Larry B. Scott from Revenge of the Nerds and the highly underseen Extreme Prejudice, Jerry Levine from Teen Wolf, horror legend Shawnee Smith, and of course Robbie Rist, who was Cousin Oliver in the Brady Bunch. Oh, and one notable cast member is the late Rob Garrison as one of the bad guys, who was also one of the bad guys in Karate Kid. In one of the first episodes of Cobra Kai, the sequel spin-off TV show from Karate Kid, Johnny watches Iron Eagle on TV for inspiration, and Rob would later appear in the show Cobra Kai in his last performance. And to go further meta, Larry B. Scott is also in Karate Kid as one of the bad guys. Your brain might officially be mush now, but let's keep going.
T, drum roll. The best new applicant for the pilot training program is...
Our buddy Doug got an F in one of his classes, so he's been rejected for the Air Force Academy at the beginning of the film, which sets up a nasty chase scene between a plane and a motorcycle from a rival group of teens. We enter the Snake Run.
Wonder what a Cessna looks like splattered all over those rocks.
This is a very well-directed scene by Furie. It looks very dangerous, and the shots cut together seamlessly. And let us not forget about the music in this scene, because as Lamar from Lambda has informed us,
The music is jamming, D!
Doug's band of brats, called the Eagles Flying Club, figure out how to hack the system and get all the intel they need to help Doug and Chappie get ready for their mission. Top Gun may have had a killer soundtrack, but so does Iron Eagle, Katrina and the Waves, King Cobra, George Clinton, Twisted Sister, and Dio. Dio, bitches, Dio. But Iron Eagle has one thing that Top Gun will never have. And that is Queen. That's right, Queen. And the track One Vision, which is one of the all-time badass Queen rock songs ever made.
I can get used to that.
And there is nothing in life better than dropping bombs on bad guys while jamming to Queen. Louis Gossett Jr. is so great as Chappie and provides a great mentor figure for Doug Masters. Chappie flew with Doug's dad and is sympathetic to Doug's efforts to subvert the government's lack of action on recovering his dad from being executed. Is it unbelievable? Yeah. But is it the most badass teen fantasy ever outside of Porky's? Hell yeah it is.
Heard him. He can get us over the runway 30?
Yeah. If you come up here and show me where the throttle is in these things.
I'm starting not to like you.
The Air Force helped out with Maverick and Top Gun, but not Masters and Iron Eagle, supposedly because it involved the theft of a plane, which is a no-no. So producers got cooperation from the Israeli government, so a lot of the jets you see in the movie are actual Israeli jets. It is also interesting that in both Top Gun films and here in the Iron Eagle films, that the enemy is always vague. You never really find out what country the bad guy is from in either of these franchises, and I guess that's probably the reason that these governments cooperate in these productions in the first place. After rewatching all the Iron Eagle films in a row, there's really no question that screenwriter Kevin Elders and Furie had just a little bit of distrust in the bureaucracy of government. The script by Kevin Elders and Sidney J. Furie is written to a teen audience and indulges in a lot of 80s teen fantasy tropes. Portable cassette players aside, Master's character gets to play an adult. He gets to be an equal. And to a teen, to be an adult is a fantasy. Doug flies jets, hangs out at clubs, defies authority, and wins every time. He is the avatar that male teens wanted to be at this time. This is clearly a fantasy film, and it's wonderfully done. I think people watch this and say, oh, this would never happen. They are correct, but what if it did? And that's the fun part of this film. The scene of Chappie telling the Eagles Flying Club is so great because it gives Doug's plan some much needed legitimacy and also reinforces the theme that kids can do what adults can do, but even better.
I want to congratulate you all on some very fine work. You have come a long way in a short while. I've always said that a person should not be judged by their experience, but by their performance, and yours has been exemplary. I would like to shake everybody's hand. I've never had a finer planning staff ever. Ever!
Right before they leave for the mission, Chappie shows him a book full of his young buddies that died in Vietnam, just to reinforce to Doug that this is not a game, and that those guys thought they were ready too, but they weren't. So have a good night, and don't forget to rewind your tapes, Doug.
When it was all over, I promised myself that I'd never be a part of killing kids again. That's why it took so long to come around to helping you.
A lot of these sequences play out like a video game, which was also extremely popular at the time. And a lot of kids played games involving jets and cars and stuff, and we also listened to our cassettes while fighting. This was another reason why this film hit with its target audience. Iron Eagle is a teen fantasy film that in its day inspired kids to do the right thing, but that you don't always have to play by the book to do the right thing. Like all 80s films, we end with an awkward high-five group hug. Doug and Chappie will return for another mission in Iron Eagle 2, but there is an important twist in the next chapter that alienated Iron Eagle fans and damaged their franchise permanently. Take it away, Dio.
Hi, I'm Jason Gedrick, and I'm not going to hype you. I just want to say that I'm in a new movie called Rooftops, and it's got a lot going for it, and I think you should check it out.
A world exploding with music.
It took Top Gun a good 36 years to figure out a sequel. But with Iron Eagle, only 2 years passed before we were treated to Iron Eagle 2, aka Iron Eagle 2, The Battle Beyond the Flag, in 1988.
I got something that'll blow the roofs off in Anchorage. Let's do it.
The original film was not a huge box office hit in '86, with Top Gun being the jet fighting film of choice of that year. However, on home video, it absolutely dominated. Director Sidney J. Furie, in a surprise move, came back for this sequel. This time, Doug, Masters, and Chappie are back, but actor Jason Gedrick didn't want to come back. So in a bold decision, he came back to film his death scene, which opens the film.
I've been to 10! No way. If I'm lying, I'm dying.
Doug is shot down by Russian planes near Alaska, while his partner Cooper, aka Cobra, escapes. Doug Masters was a flying Ferris Bueller to kids everywhere. Having him die in the first scene was akin to Optimus Prime dying at the beginning of the Transformers animated film. It's traumatic and it's off-putting.
Cobra!
The first film was funny and light, even though it was dealing with life and death situations. Nothing like this really happened in part 1. Although you do hope Doug was able to come back, as did Chappie did in the last film when he was shot down. We'll get back to that later. After Doug's death, his partner in flight, Cooper, aka Cobra, played by the somber Mark Humphrey, is shipped to an unknown airbase in Israel and introduced to Chappie.
I'm with you guys. I fly.
Who informs him that he's part of a group of misfit American and Russian pilots that have been assembled to take out a hidden mountain missile complex with targets on both Russia and the US. Top Gun Maverick, my little friend. Did you see this movie and think no one would notice you stole the entire plot? You son of a bitch. I think this movie had potential, especially since the same writers, Furie and Elders, wrote this chapter, but the biggest issue with this movie is its lead. Humphreys is just a absolute bore. He has no chemistry with Gossett or his love interest, the Russian fighter pilot played by Sharon Brandon. In fact, he's just actually kind of plain creepy. Now, most of the Russian pilots are way more interesting than their American counterparts. Actor Colm Feore is really strong here as a Russian pilot, and he is one of the only actors here to go on to have a really healthy career. Here is also where this film deviates from the first in tone. In the first film we have goofy, nerdy kids as comedy. Here it's all adults, and the attempt to make them funny just doesn't hit at all. It makes them seem more like idiots than competent military members that fly planes.
Come on out of here, man. Let me show you how to shoot the ball. Hey, fellas, why don't you lighten up, huh? Leave the guy alone, huh? Leave him alone.
Shoot the ball good?
It's also very odd that Gossett seems very unaffected by Doug's death. In fact, he doesn't even mention it until 30 minutes into the movie.
How long did you fly with him?
Who?
Doug Masters? He was a friend of mine, too.
If Doug was such a huge part of his life, wouldn't he have said something to Cooper right off the bat? And Cooper just seems rather ambivalent about Doug's death here as well. Such a huge wasted opportunity for conflict, it almost feels underwritten to the point like they didn't even know if maybe he would come back, or they just left it open. The soundtrack here is terrible. I guess they didn't have the budget for Dio or Queen anymore, so that's another missing element of the original that made it so iconic. You kind of feel director Furie is kind of struggling here as well. The actors he has to work with are clearly not up to the task, and with a few exceptions, Gossett is clearly on a level beyond anyone else in this cast.
Do you have one of those macho call signs like Stud or Ace?
Cobra.
The action scenes they're okay here, but unlike the last film where we care deeply about Masters and his attempt to rescue his dad, there's no real stakes here. The enemy has no face. At least the stakes aren't shown. There's not one scene where the enemy is targeting a US or Russian city. It's just generic bad guy footage in a warehouse. It's much like it was in Top Gun Maverick. It's all hearsay and a silent mute enemy. This does not create any sort of conflict for us to hang our hats on. The conflict here is supposed to be between our pilots getting along to achieve the mission, but we don't care about any of them, including our lead.
Climb, sir, climb!
Soak this in a little bit. After a big death scene, they bond over caricature drawings of themselves. So, the next time you pass one of these wonderful artists on the beach, please stop and thank them for their service to our country. And if they ask you, what are you talking about, just smile and say, Iron Eagle 2, never say die. They rip off their Velcro patches, and we wait as the screenwriter of Top Gun 2 takes extensive notes in the back, only to put those notes in Xenu's top secret folder to be opened 35 years later under the tight supervision of Tom Cruise. The dogfight scenes in this film were again performed by the Israeli army, and in fact the entire film was filmed in Israel this time, whereas the first film was only partially filmed there. And also a note that Gossett never even gets in a plane in this film. He stays in the tower or in a tank, or now he likes to go infantry style on the ground to help out. Perhaps if he had kept his dance regiment in check, he would still be flying. Our lead actors embrace, in the most bland embrace of all time, and will in fact then live forever, happily ever after, while Jason Gedrick dances his heart out in the hit motion picture Rooftops, and goes on to have a storied career in film that we all discuss today. Oh wait. Well, it's time for Iron Eagle 3, aka Ace's Iron Eagle 3. How will this one be different, you might ask? Well, we have cocaine, a femme Rambo bodybuilder, Nazis, and the Street Fighter himself, Sonny Chiba. Are you in?
Maybe you should just say no.
Ace's Iron Eagle 3 came along in 1992 after Iron Eagle 2 did extremely well on home video. This time, series director Sidney J. Furie was very busy with Ladybugs and The Taking of Beverly Hills, so the producers pulled off quite a coup and got 007 director John Glen to step in and direct the picture. Glen was an established editor of Bond pictures, including my personal favorite, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and Moonraker. He then went on to direct For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, A View to a Kill, The Living Daylights, and License to Kill. After having killed off the character of Doug Masters in the opening scene of Part 2 and replacing him with a cardboard discount Tom Cruise cutout, the lead of Part 2, Mark Humphrey, was never heard from again. But Louis Gossett Jr. as Chappie Sinclair was game for some more aerial hijinks, and wisely they got his character in the air again, whereas in Part 2 he was grounded for the entire runtime. This time, Chappie is helping run a traveling vintage WW2 aircraft show in Texas, where they take turns shooting paint pellets at each other. This was a great way to reintroduce Chappie, and it seemed like a thing that he would be doing at this stage in his life. Joining him are a cast of racial stereotypes that seem written from an action figure-laden floor of a 6-year-old's room. But alas, it is written yet again by Iron Eagle series vet Kevin Elders. We have the British plane, flown by Palmer, portrayed by Christopher Cazenove.
Still no match for the spit, I'm afraid.
The German plane is flown by Ernst, played by Horst Buchholz, who you might recognize from The Magnificent Seven, of course, to which this film plays numerous homages to. And then we have our Japanese plane, flown by everyone's favorite Street Fighter, Sonny Chiba. The supporting cast is also impressive, with what was supposed to be a star-turning introductory role for female bodybuilding champ Rachel McLish as Anna. And the bad guys here are also impressive, because not only do we get the heavy from Raiders of the Lost Ark, Paul Freeman, doing his Moloch impression, but the main heavy from Crocodile Dundee 2 and Kinjite Forbidden Subjects, Juan Fernandez. So it's almost an alternative universe where the Raiders and Crocodile Dundee franchises joined up to kill the Iron Eagle franchise.
You're late.
Chappie is summoned to take a look at what remains of his friend's plane and tells the audience that, well, most of my friends get shot down, but this one happens to have a bodybuilding sister who's like Rambo and shit, but she's being held hostage to a Nazi in Peru with her father. Oh, what to do. If only I had some pilots to lead a mission to Peru. Wouldn't that be cool? Anna is able to escape because she has some serious arms, dude. I mean, look at those things. Those are deadly serious. She vows to kill all Nazis and save her father, but alas, she needs air support. Along the way, Anna is sexually assaulted by Ray Boom Boom Mancini in his career-introducing role as the rapist Chico.
You can't do this. Watch me.
Nice choice there, Ray. But also on this trip, we have what might be the most horrendous character in this rogues gallery of stereotypes, TV.
Yo ho ho! Santa Claus is here. Santa went straight to the ghetto.
His scenes are so cringe that we just hope he hangs back after his first few scenes, but sadly he flies coach and ends up being the comic relief to Rachel McLish's character Anna.
My legs! My legs! I can't feel my legs! They're dead!
How does this happen? How does this get written? I'm at a loss here.
Usted dig rap? Like, my name is TV, and I'm here to say that I am a rapping brother, and I'm here to stay. It's showtime, so let's get busy.
Chappie and his band of stereotypes take to the air to take on the Peruvian chapter of the Nazis, where World War II planes go head-to-head with jets, while McLish gets to go full Rambo. Thankfully, TV is captured, but unfortunately McLish rescues him and her father, so we can have more exchanges such as this.
TV, is that you?
None other, baby. I flew in for the surprise party, baggage class.
Did you know that if someone fires a missile at you in midair, all you have to do is open the window and throw a roll of aluminum foil out the window and boom! If only George Kennedy had known about this in Airport 79. Once the Peru jets intercept our WW2 buds, things get interesting when action figures start to fall out of planes for some reason. This is actual footage from the film. I did not shoot this myself for this video, I swear to God. All joking aside, it is great to see Chappie back in the air fighting. That makes this entry instantly more fun than the generic part 2. Chappie has good chemistry with his contemporaries here, and even though they are towing a heavy line of stereotypes, it is fun in spots. And it recalls classics like The Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape. Director John Glen shows off some great action set pieces from time to time. Unfortunately, they are mainly on the ground, the highlight being this scene. But overall, this isn't up to the quality of a Bond picture, or even an Iron Eagle picture for that matter. But I'm sure Glen wasn't dealing with that kind of budget, because at this point the Iron Eagle films were fast approaching the direct-to-video market, and yet Glen manages to maintain a fun level of action regardless.
What you smell is in your pants. Take a whiff of this.
There is no cool soundtrack, or even one song to rock to. They seem to have lost the budget for the licensing of any songs at this point. Gossett, though, seems very engaged in this one as Chappie, as opposed to the last entry. McLish is the film's wild card here. She's really great to look at on screen and has a real presence. And one has to think, had she been in, say, a different film, would she have been a huge action star in the 90s maybe? She clearly has that it factor. In fact, you can totally see her as a Bond villain or even a Bond girl. She starred in a follow-up to this, also written by Kevin Elders, called Ravenhawk, directed by Albert Poon. Noticed I haven't talked about the great Sonny Chiba in a while. Well, yeah, that just happened. Chappie goes head-to-head with Moloch because that dang Covenant he has on one of those trucks has some coke in it. But not to worry, Mr. Jones got here earlier and made everything right. Not many Peruvian Nazi adventure flicks end with a Texas barbecue scene, but this one does. Plus, LGJ just looks so fine in a cowboy hat, don't he? Let's all have some ribs, y'all.
TV, you okay?
Nice hat.
Okay, so did you know there was an Iron Eagle 4? I did not. In fact, I'm a fan of this series, and even I didn't know there was a fourth one. And did you know that director Sidney J. Furie, director of the original Iron Eagle and Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, came back to direct? Me either. But yes, it does exist. Iron Eagle 4 on the attack. The killing off of lead character Doug Masters in Part 2 was a massive misstep for the franchise, because Part 2 was a shell of a film that had no reason to exist. If you were going to kill the best character in your franchise, build a story around that, but it was so poorly mishandled that this movie was created to retrofit that awful decision. Now, we did get the fun Part 3 entry, which despite its flaws was a fun entry in the series, but like 2, it lacked its Dougness. In this film, the opening credits go back to the opening credits of Part 2. Is this the first time in motion picture history that this has been done? It has to be. Anyway, we go back to the opening of Part 2, but instead of Doug dying, he hits the eject button right before, and somehow his good buddy Cooper, aka Cobra, never saw this? In between Parts 2 and 4, Doug was captured by the Russians and tortured for years, while Chappie was dancing and flying around with his WW2 buddies. Did Chappie ever try to go bust Doug out? I guess not. I'm so sorry, Dougie. Doug is now a PTSD white trash trailer living reject. And gone are the days of the leg-attached cassette player. Jason Gedrick returns to the role of... Oh, wait a minute, that's not Jason Gedrick. That's Jason Cadeau?
I'm retired from the Air Force. A little flight school over at Silver Creek.
Did you think that just by getting another actor named Jason, we wouldn't notice this? Man, who knew that the Iron Eagle series was as doppelganger deep as Twin Peaks was? After hiding out as a mechanic in an old airfield, Chappie Sinclair finds Doug Masters once again, and after getting over the fact that he's not Jason Gedrick, asks him to help lead a new flight school of rejects. These new recruits are kinda young misfits like the first movie, only this time they're actual juvies with records. And in what world does a judge send bad kids to a pilot school to be Iron Eagles? I don't know, but this one does apparently.
Doug, I'm kind of new at this, man. Okay, you gotta tell me what to do here. Doug!
Huh?
After some initial training, it's become clear that Doug is a full-on alcoholic with no cares in the world. He smokes a lot, and Chappie is just gonna keep on dancing. While one of our juvies named Wheeler, played by Joe Vanicola, tries to cheat a drug dealer during a lesson at an abandoned airfield, she is attacked by some armed dudes and discovers something ain't right. Doug flies in to save her, and after a quick talk with Chappie, they soon discover that someone is hiding chemical weapons on the base.
It's all fresh sod. They came prepared.
Doug seems to be up for this challenge to expose the military secret after being left for dead in a Soviet prison for years after the events of Part 2. I mean, look what they did to his face. Can we blame him? The guy used to look like Jason Gedrick.
Please don't abandon them the way I abandoned you.
There are some really great scenes between Doug and Chappie, and show that what was once a great relationship has cooled. Doug resents Chappie for not coming to save him when he was in need. This is the kind of stuff we needed in Part 2 from Cooper.
They're gonna give your friend Wheeler a real hard time after she's caught.
After the kids are ordered back to juvie, Wheeler steals a plane and rescues the kids from a discount Smokey and the Bandit character. They all meet back up at Iron Eagle headquarters, and Chappie admits to Doug that he made some mistakes, and Doug says he's cool with it, but he needs help. So what does Doug Masters love more than anything else in life? Cassettes. Remember, the Walkman is Doug. Doug is the Walkman. Chappie makes him a cassette, but alas, there are no more tape players in 1995. There has always been an air of conspiracy about the military in the Iron Eagle films. Although it is a pro-American series, one can't help but sense that there is an air of distrust at play in all of these films. Maybe it stems from the military never cooperating with them on these films, and since director Furie is a Canadian filmmaker, you can kind of feel him walking on eggshells here with Chappie discovering all this internal information about chemical warfare within the US government.
Better take a look at this, sir.
Colonel, this is being accessed from a terminal inside the building.
And after all, Part 4 was all filmed completely in Toronto at an airport. Now, some of these action scenes are really bad. I mean, compare this scene to a guy being dragged on a door to the Snake Canyon chase in the original. I mean, I'm getting up there in age right now, but I could do this stunt. Like, I could do it tomorrow, no prep time. As Chappie and the Iron Juvies discover a convoy with some serious chemical weapons coming, they attempt to intercept and stop this threat before innocent people are hurt. Doug finally has to put his years of imprisonment in Russia and being left out of 2 sequels behind him and lead the team to take out the rotten chem lords that have overtaken the US government.
I survived.
Cowards always do, Doug.
I mean, every single person in the government is evil in this entry. One interesting story note is that the bad guy in this movie actually says that he was inspired by Doug and Chappie's insubordination from the first film to do what they are doing now.
It was your rescue of Doug Masters' father that inspired me.
What?
Yes, you saw an injustice, dreamed up a plan, and went ahead and did it.
My God. Did Doug and Chappie create QAnon? Furie is obviously working with a very tiny budget here, but he's able to pull off some decent visuals in the silo scenes, and there are some good scenes of Doug trying to come to grips with the fact that he's not a hero anymore. But after a while, he finds his Iron Eagle power and activates full Masters mode. Doug steals a military jet once again and starts taking out Americans this time because he has gone full Drago. But wait for it, the leg cassette brace is back. Unfortunately, this time it's sponsored by Sanyo and Superglue. In the final stock footage battle to end all stock footage battles, Doug redeems the Master's name and takes out the bad guys. Now, Discount Doug does a lot of smoking in this movie, and he's no Gedrick, but he does okay here with what they gave him to work with.
Well, I still believe. I believe the Doug Masters I knew then is alive and well.
And it's nice that this reunion even happened, so that the Doug-Chappie love story has a proper ending to the series. The love between these two men is just beautiful, and although this film is the cheapest entry in the series, it does have a heartbeat, and it leaves our Iron Eagles right where they belong, together.
Chappie Sinclair. This is Doug Masters. He's going to be a primary flight instructor.
This series has some fun moments, and some very low moments. But in the end, it's a love story between a middle-aged man and a young teen that just want to hide in the rainbow together. Take it away, Dio.
You're a rainbow